Good morning. Having established the required quorum, I sit for consideration of this council the draft order of business, CIDI OD 86-18. If there are no further comments, the order of business is approved. Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, Executive Secretary Kim Osborne, distinguished colleagues. I'm pleased to welcome you to the 86th regular meeting of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, our final meeting for 2018, and my last meeting as chair of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development. Before we begin our deliberations, I would like to express my appreciation to serve as chair of this council. Over these past 6 months, we've engaged in solutions-oriented dialogue on some of the major developmental challenges confronting the region. We still have work to do, and I look forward to continue to work with each of you as the permanent representative of the United States. Colleagues, as I mentioned in the concept note, today we commence our deliberations on the proposal for an OAS disaster response framework. This proposal, prepared by CIDI, seeks to define and realign the role of the General Secretariat of the OAS in disaster response and identify measures for strengthening the collaborative provisions of assistance to OAS member states affected by disasters. The proposal is being presented in accordance with the mandate of the June 2018 General Assembly resolution, advancing hemispheric initiatives on integral development. Latin American and the Caribbean are among the regions most at risk in disasters in the world. Volcanoes, earthquakes, droughts, and floods, and yearly cycles of major tropical storms have consistently exacerbated poverty, impeded economic growth and development, cost lives, damaged social and economic infrastructure, and disrupted food security, especially in vulnerable countries. Over the past 3 decades, our hemisphere has experienced an increase in frequency, scale, and impact of disasters. From 1980 to 2014, global economic losses resulting were estimated at $4.2 trillion US, rising from annual US $50 billion in the 80s to nearly $200 billion in the last decade. In 2017 alone, there were 335 natural disasters that affected over 95.6 million people and resulted in 9,697 deaths and losses totaling US $335 billion globally, the most expensive year in a decade. The Americas reported the highest economic losses, representing 88% of the total cost from the 93 disasters. Among these, we will recall that in a span of 4 weeks, Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria caused a record $315 billion in damages to the U.S. and Caribbean as they unleashed death, destruction, and economic disruption from the Texas Gulf Coast to Florida, Puerto Rico, and the small, highly vulnerable island states in the Northern Caribbean. The Commonwealth of Dominica lost up to 226% of its GDP, and the entire island of Barbuda was evacuated. So far, in the 2018 season, Hurricanes Florence and Michaels impacted the east coast of the U.S. and the Caribbean basin, leaving behind economic losses estimated at $50 billion and $25 billion, respectively. In addition, there was significant loss of life and damaged infrastructure from 2 major earthquakes that struck Mexico in a span of just 11 days. We also had the eruption of the Volcán de Fuego in Guatemala in June of 2018, which caused many deaths and displaced thousands of people. Finally, we had wildfires across North and South America. This year in the United States of California, we experienced some of the worst fires ever recorded, and recently contained campfires have left over 88 people dead, while 500 people remain missing. It is against this daunting backdrop that we will have this final discussion today on OAS Disaster Response Framework. I'm now pleased to offer the floor to Assistant Secretary General, Mr. Nestor Mendez, for his opening remarks. Mr. Mendez, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Good morning. Ambassador Carlos Trujillo, Chairman of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development and Permanent Representative of the United States. Ms. Kim Osborne, Executive Secretary for Integral Development, distinguished ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is a pleasure to join you at this important session of the Inter-American Council for Integral Development, and I welcome the opportunity to share some thoughts on the key matters that brings us together today. Thank you, Mr. Chair, for convening this timely meeting, which, among other agenda items, will undertake a preliminary review of a proposal prepared by the Secretariat for Integral Development for the creation of an OAS disaster response framework. As you are well aware, our region has experienced an increase in frequency, scale, and impact of natural disasters in recent years. The devastating effects of climate change on our economies, health, environment, including the spread of ravaging wildfires, hurricanes, and heat waves, are already battering our member states, and the danger of more similar catastrophes is worsening. The General Secretariat is committed to addressing this crucial issue and continues to take the necessary actions as mandated by the member states through General Assembly Resolution 2961. The Secretariat for Integral Development has been working diligently on this proposal aimed at facilitating a more targeted, collaborative, and timely response to disasters by the General Secretariat of the OAS and the broader inter-American system. The system of post-disaster international development assistance has two fundamental characteristics. The first is a bilateral assistance between member states, which is sometimes channeled through regional disaster management organizations, such as those in the Caribbean and Central America. And the second are the well-established arrangements coordinated by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, also known as OCHA. Generally, these two systems have worked well. However, oftentimes due to the scale and complexity of an emergency in an affected country or a group of countries, the appropriate post-disaster needs cannot be met at that particular time. Recently, we had a perfect example of this situation in post-Irma Dominica, when, notwithstanding the field presence of UN OCHA and other international development assistance partners in Dominica, the OAS General Secretariat received a request for assistance from the government for an urgent technical assessment of the island's water supply system. The General Secretariat was able to quickly canvass the capacity within its member states and found that the White Helmets, with whom the OAS has a cooperative agreement, could mobilize an OAS White Helmets technical mission to assist the government. Importantly, among the first tasks of the technical team on arriving in Dominica was to brief the UN OCHA team on the ground about the purpose of the mission. I remember this case clearly. It was a holiday in Washington when the call came in, and I contacted Kim immediately and the authorities in Dominica, and she mobilized to make sure that the people who were on the ground and ready to move, and with a small but necessary resource base already lodged in the OAS system, which could be used to pay, everything was brought together very quickly, and we were able to send in some of these experts. This is a very practical example of what we can really do in a very specific area to respond to a specific request if we have but a small amount of resources and capabilities properly lined up. I cite this example to illustrate how the OAS, with its available tools and instruments, is able to play an effective role, especially at that phase in the disaster management cycle that straddles response, rehabilitation, and recovery. We are also well positioned with a solid regional framework of instruments and mechanisms to address natural and other disasters. We have had an international convention for the facilitation of disaster assistance that no other regional body has. We also have an Inter-American Committee for Natural Disaster Reduction and a Disaster Mitigation Network that were created to bring together the competent entities of the Inter-American system to periodically examine trends, lessons learned, good practices, and challenges in disaster risk management, and offer policy and technical guidance to member states. Yet we have also learned that the increase in humanitarian actors and intra-regional disaster response assistance calls for a renewed role of the OAS General Secretariat to facilitate the international response to disasters and to strengthen the collaborative provision of assistance by OAS member states, permanent observers, and other entities to those nations affected by disasters. I have underscored on several occasions, and do so again today, the importance of finding our particular niche in this entangled web of international disaster assistance actors. In comparison to many others, we are a relatively small organization with a limited resource base, but we have extensive technical experience and unique convening power, and we are a repository of valuable strategic information. I take note that the CIDI proposal seeks to put the existing arrangements on a firmer footing. Of course, one of the challenges is managing our limited resources. Here, I sincerely believe that with the will and creativity of member states, this challenge can effectively be overcome. Perhaps now may be a good time to consider innovative ways to address this issue and to ponder on very important questions, such as, is there a way to restructure the funding to allow for a predictable flow of resources from international sources? Can member states consider seconding or assigning personnel to CIDI during the Atlantic season to assist with the management of the framework? Can we consider flash appeals at the start of every hurricane season to capitalize on them so that it can support the deployment of field missions to affected member states that are in need of assistance? Can we restructure the funding as a trust fund that works off the interest accrued from monetary contributions from member states and our international partners? We must be practical in the way we respond in times of crisis. It is time to think outside of the box. I challenge you once again to help us realign our efforts and bolster our planning and disaster management activities to respond more effectively and ensure that our brothers and sisters are taken care of during the most difficult times. This is a pressing issue, and we must act swiftly. I appeal for your consideration to prioritize this item on your agenda so that we may have a mechanism in place before the start of the next hurricane season. I put these ideas on the table to urge delegations to approach the review of the proposal for a disaster response framework with an open mind and with a determination to put the OAS in a position where it can be of greater assistance to our peoples. I look forward to your deliberations as we take important steps and move forward towards defining and enhancing the role of the General Secretariat in facilitating international disaster response. Before I conclude, Mr. Chairman, and taking advantage of your presence here, and not only as the chair of CIDI, but also as the permanent representative of the United States, I would like to convey through you to the government and people of the United States the deepest condolences on behalf of the General Secretariat and the entire Inter-American family on the passing away of the 41st President of the United States, who we know is in the final stages of his presence with us here on Earth. With your permission, I would like to invite everybody to stand for a minute of silence, if you allow me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Assistant Secretary General. I now offer the floor to Executive Secretary for Integral Development, Ms. Kim Osborne, who will present the proposal. Secretary Osborne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Ambassador Mendez, distinguished ambassadors and delegates, I take this opportunity to welcome you to this meeting being held in furtherance of General Assembly Resolution 2916, adopted at the last regular meeting of the General Assembly in June of 2018. This resolution instructs CIDI to, quote, present for consideration of CIDI a proposal to facilitate, as resources permit, the response to disasters and to strengthen the collaboration provision of assistance by OAS member states, permanent observers, and other entities to member states affected by disasters, with a view to aligning and optimizing the use of all existing instruments and mechanisms of the OAS, strengthening coordination and collaboration within the framework of the instruments and the entities of the Inter-American System and sub-regional mechanisms, and functioning in a coordinated manner with existing mechanisms and agencies of the United Nations system and other international entities, end quote. Since receiving this mandate, CIDI has undertaken a thorough review of disaster assistance instruments and mechanisms that exist at and within the Inter-American System, as well as those that exist at sub-regional and regional levels, such as in the Caribbean and Central America. CIDI has also reviewed the disaster assistance mechanisms and instruments used by OAS member states and permanent observers. The review was also informed by consultations with sister agencies of the Inter-American System that are involved in disaster response and members of the Inter-American Committee on Natural Disaster Reduction. Also considered were the outcomes of the Meeting on Cooperation Authorities on Disaster Resilience, which was held in September 2018, and the tabletop exercise which was conducted by the Inter-American Defense Board in collaboration with CIDI and the Pacific Disaster Center. In addition, the review examined various OAS General Assembly mandates in disaster risk management, and more particularly in disaster response. An important mandate in this regard is Resolution 2492 of 2009, which established a joint PCCD working group to, quote, begin the process of joint assessment of existing legislative and coordination mechanisms in the natural disaster and humanitarian assistance areas, which takes into account coordination efforts that can be made by the organization and considers the advisability of updating mechanisms, end quote. It will be immediately apparent to delegations that this mandate, which was issued in 2009, is similar in intent to the one issued 9 years later, which has brought us here today. And so delegations may well be asking themselves, what was the outcome of the 2009 proposed process? That process led to the adoption in 2012 of the Inter-American Plan for Disaster Prevention and Response and Coordination of Humanitarian Assistance, which formed the basis for our continuing effort to seek ways to enhance the role of the General Secretariat of the OAS in facilitating international disaster response from OAS member states and permanent observers. In conducting this review and crafting this proposal, we have tried to ensure that any recommended enhancements in the capacity of the General Secretariat in the area of international disaster response assistance do not in any way infringe upon or undermine the roles played and the mechanisms used by OAS member states, permanent observers, international partners, especially by the UN system. The proposal seeks to enhance existing OAS capabilities while establishing an enabling environment for triangular cooperation among OAS member states and permanent observers that results in a more coordinated effort and that ease the burden experienced by affected member states in managing disaster emergencies. Moreover, the proposal does not recommend the creation of new mechanisms or instruments, but rather seeks to realign existing instruments to enable the OAS to better leverage existing capacities in OAS member states, and secondly, promote collaboration and cooperation among assisting member states to ensure that gaps in international response identified by an affected member state can be filled as quickly as is practicable. In summary, the proposal recommends supplementary and complementary roles for the General Secretariat that build upon the existing roles of the UN system and bilateral forms of assistance, and that focus on the latest stages of disaster response, rehabilitation, and recovery. The overarching goal is to build the resilience of affected member states and their communities. The proposal does not recommend that the OAS be involved in disaster relief, and I want to underscore that, an area which the UN system and bilateral assistance has proven to be agile, timely, and effective. In reflecting on the proposal, delegation should bear in mind the established role of the General Secretariat in disaster prevention and mitigation and in building resilience, which is defined in the Inter-American Program for Sustainable Development, the PIDS, 2016-2021. Today, all CIDI programs and projects integrate the objectives of the disaster risk management, and particularly those for building resilience. And since 2016, the objectives of disaster risk management are being mainstreamed across all areas of the Secretariat and dependencies of the OAS as an institutional policy. Of course, the OAS's role in disaster risk management began more than 4 decades ago. During the 1990s, while the world was still debating whether disasters were natural or not, the OAS was already tackling disasters as part of its regional development programs and projects. For example, in 1991, the OAS published the document Disaster Planning and Development, Managing Natural Hazards to Reduce Loss, intended for government officials responsible for the formulation of policy, as well as for international development banks and international cooperation agencies. In that same year, the OAS published a primer on natural hazard management in integrated regional development planning, which even today is used as technical reference for planners and policymakers. And more recently, in the early 2000s, we supported the preparation of manuals for the design and implementation of early warning systems in Central America. Today, the OAS works with many national agencies such as the Argentine White Helmets Commission and FEMA in the US, as well as with cooperation agencies of other countries such as Brazil and Chile, providing training and scholarships in disaster emergency management and adaptation to climate change. We collaborate with sub-regional agencies such as CIDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Management Agency, and the Caribbean Tourism Organization in advancing disaster risk management and physical and environmental planning, as well as promoting business continuity as a key resilience building strategy. We all agree that we must invest in disaster prevention and mitigation, build more resilience to disasters, and reduce the vulnerability of those vulnerable. However, we also understand that the increasing threats due to natural, technological, and man-made hazards, and the need to build capacity to manage disasters and to facilitate international assistance that is increasingly needed. National emergency response agencies are increasingly under stress, and more frequent and more intense events have led to the fatigue of those systems. At the same time, the hemisphere has acquired a wealth of knowledge and capacities that, if well coordinated, can alleviate the suffering of those most vulnerable to disasters and place them on a path to recovery. CIDI and the General Secretariat are well positioned to enhance international response to disasters while building capacity to manage disasters and build resilience of our most vulnerable states and communities. And with that, I submit the proposal for your consideration. It was circulated previously. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Secretary. Before opening the floor to receive your comments on the OAS disaster response framework proposed by CIDI, including the establishment of a CIDI working group, I would like to briefly offer some preliminary principles that might guide our discussion. It is clear that disasters are increasing in their frequency, complexity, and their social, economic, environmental impacts. It is also clear that the cumulative impact of disasters in our hemisphere is seriously challenging the coping abilities of not only affected countries, but also that of humanitarian assistance agencies. In addition, the situation calls for a well-structured response from OAS member states and institutions and agencies with the capacity to alleviate distress and build resilience of affected countries to disasters. From Secretary Osborne's presentation, I note the following. The proposal does not interfere with established international and bilateral system framework. The proposal does not seek to impose any additional burdens or financial resources on the General Secretariat and/or on member states. The proposal seeks to consolidate and refocus disaster response instruments and mechanisms that exist within their General Secretariat and the Inter-American system. The proposal draws heavily on the ideal of solidarity among member states, which constitutes the foundation of the OAS. Are there any comments? Seeing none. Colleagues, Secretary, sorry. The ambassador from Brazil is recognized.
Obrigado, presidente. Bom dia a todos os apreciados colegas do Conselho. Em primeiro lugar, eu gostaria de dizer que tomei boa nota das diretrizes que o senhor acaba de apresentar, que provavelmente ajudam a esclarecer, inclusive, algumas das dúvidas e dos comentários que fazem parte da minha apresentação aqui hoje. E o mesmo digo em relação à apresentação feita pela senhora Kim Osborne também. Gostaria de agradecer a convocação da sessão para iniciar a discussão dessa proposta apresentada pela Secretaria do estabelecimento de um mecanismo de resposta a desastres da OEA. Agradeço também a apresentação inicial feita pelo secretário-geral adjunto, senhor Néstor Mendes. O tema da redução do risco de desastres é com muita razão, uma preocupação dos Estados-membros da organização. Fatores tão diversos como as deficiências históricas dos processos de desenvolvimento, a baixa resiliência de infraestruturas e serviços, bem como os efeitos catastróficos dos fenômenos naturais, vêm contribuindo para uma crescente severidade dos desastres na região. Portanto, a proposta apresentada é relevante e merece a atenção e a consideração cuidadosa dos Estados-membros no marco da preparação para a 49ª Assembleia Geral. E, ao fazê-lo, no curso dessa preparação, sem prejuízo da primazia que cabe ao CIDI na matéria, será necessário também levar em conta as discussões que ocorrem no âmbito da Comissão de Segurança Hemisférica. A discussão nos próximos meses permitirá aos Estados-membros se aprofundarem em um debate que apenas teve um início nos últimos meses, um tratamento preliminar, a respeito da opção entre enfocar os esforços e os recursos da organização na cooperação para a criação de resiliência, como ouvimos nas apresentações iniciais hoje, ou na área de resposta imediata a desastres, já que essas duas implicam capacidades muito diferentes. Será importante aprofundar esse debate, pois nossos recursos financeiros e humanos, assim como as capacidades institucionais aqui na organização, são limitados. A proposta representa uma evolução positiva, pois apresenta introduz o conceito, a ideia de que a Organização dos Estados Americanos funcione como facilitadora da mobilização de recursos operacionais dos Estados-membros, dos observadores e das agências interamericanas, em um marco que parece mais amplo de suplementação e de coordenação com as ações das Nações Unidas. É sempre importante recordar nesse debate que diversas agências especializadas do sistema das Nações Unidas atuam já na região, têm os recursos, têm a capacidade e têm a experiência necessárias para esse tipo de intervenção. Além disso, no âmbito interamericano, temos também a Organização Pan-Americana de Saúde, que funciona simultaneamente como escritório regional da Organização Mundial da Saúde e que, igualmente, tem uma capacidade de atuação muito reconhecida nessa área. Então, brevemente, eu gostaria de fazer apenas alguns comentários sobre o processo negociador que deverá ter lugar. A primeira consideração que faço é que, ainda do ponto de vista da delegação brasileira, deveríamos ainda avaliar a conveniência de estabelecer um grupo de trabalho específico, à luz da competência que já detém a Comissão de Políticas de Cooperação Solidária para o Desenvolvimento, que é um órgão subsidiário permanente do Conselho, que se reúne com grande frequência e que teria, em princípio, as condições de conduzir esse debate a nosso juízo. Ademais, as discussões sobre a proposta do mecanismo deverão, em nossa visão, estar embasadas também em informações precisas sobre os possíveis custos, já que, em princípio, e levando em conta também todas as cautelas que foram apresentadas inicialmente, mas, em princípio, não nos parece realista a expectativa presente no documento de que essa iniciativa poderia ser desenvolvida com os recursos financeiros atuais. Será também importante, adicionalmente, refletir cuidadosamente sobre o modelo de governança do mecanismo e discutir alternativas que sejam adequadas, tendo em vista o interesse que é compartilhado por todos nós aqui de fortalecer as competências da CIDI e do Conselho de Desenvolvimento Integral. Finalmente, gostaríamos de propor que as principais agências da ONU e do sistema interamericano, que têm responsabilidade e têm experiência na resposta a desastres, possam também ser consultados e envolvidos no exercício. É claro que isso na medida do possível e resguardadas as respectivas competências de cada uma dessas agências. Então, senhor presidente, agradeço a Vossa Excelência por nos convocar para essa discussão e esteja certo de que poderá contar com o compromisso do Brasil na avaliação futura do tema. Muito obrigado.
Thank you. The delegation from the United States are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First, I would like to thank the Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez for the challenge that he's presented. I think this exercise should be an exercise to truly identify what is the comparative advantage of the OAS, and in particular in the realm of response and preparedness. And secondly, I would like to thank Kim Osborne and her staff for the presentation that's been made and the proposal that's before us. This is something that I think has been long overdue. There has been an exercise in the past in terms of identifying the mechanisms that we have, but we think now it is in fact timely, and we look forward to moving forward with particular ideas that may realign and reorganize how the OAS conducts response and preparedness to natural disasters. We find ourselves very much in agreement with many of the suggestions that Brazil has made, which we think would be very valuable, including the inclusiveness of other institutions outside this organization that play an important role that the OAS should be complementing. With that in mind, we strongly support the suggestion that this proposal be sent to the CIDI Policy Committee for its further consideration. That would be the appropriate body, and we look forward to working with other delegations around the table for the final report and recommendations that could be adopted at the next General Assembly. Thank you very much for this opportunity to contribute our perspective on this issue.
Thank you. The delegate from El Salvador, recognized.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Buenas tardes a todos y todas. Agradecemos las presentaciones realizadas. Agradecemos a la presidencia del CIDI y a la Secretaría de la CIDI por la convocatoria a esta reunión. También, pues, de forma muy particular, ¿verdad?, agradecemos a la CIDI y al Departamento de Desarrollo Sostenible por la elaboración y presentación de la propuesta, un marco de respuesta a desastres desde la organización. La Agenda 2030 para el Desarrollo Sostenible, en su ODS número 9, establece construir infraestructura resiliente, promover la industrialización inclusiva y sostenible y fomentar la innovación. El marco de Sendai para la reducción del riesgo de desastres en su meta F hace un llamado a los Estados miembros a mejorar considerablemente la cooperación internacional para los países en desarrollo mediante un apoyo adecuado y sostenible que complemente las medidas adoptadas a nivel nacional para la aplicación del presente marco y hasta el 2030. A mi misión permanente le parece de manera muy inicial y considera muy valiosa la propuesta presentada por la Secretaría Ejecutiva para el Desarrollo Integral, en el sentido que dicha propuesta venga a complementar la labor y los esfuerzos en la prevención y mitigación del riesgo de desastre, así como también en la articulación de los instrumentos jurídicos y mecanismos internacionales en la respuesta oportuna y efectiva en la asistencia humanitaria que ya se viene desarrollando desde el Sistema de Naciones Unidas a través de sus oficinas regionales para América Latina y el Caribe. Tal es el caso de los trabajos realizados en el tema en mención por la Oficina de Coordinación de Asuntos Humanitarios OCHA, así como también por otros organismos internacionales regionales como la Federación Internacional de Sociedades de la Cruz Roja y Media Luna Roja, entre otros actores. En esta línea representa una área de interés para El Salvador todos los esfuerzos encaminados a complementar y a fortalecer a nivel interamericano una respuesta preventiva y oportuna ante los desastres, ya que como país venimos haciendo los mejores esfuerzos y estamos comprometidos en lograr la plena implementación del marco de Sendai para la reducción de los riesgos de desastres. Dicho lo anterior, señor presidente, El Salvador también desea sumarse a lo que ya se dijo anteriormente acá, ¿verdad?, por otras delegaciones, que sería de suma importancia que toda esta discusión pueda ser considerada también en lo que es la Comisión de Políticas. Sabemos y estamos claros del mandato que existe, ¿verdad?, y dado por la Asamblea General en su resolución 2916, en lo que es el párrafo 13 específicamente, tenemos claridad de eso y también tenemos claridad, pues, que en la competencia del CIDI, pues, el marco de acción para poder crearse un grupo de trabajo. Sin embargo, para consideración también nos sumamos a lo que se ha planteado en esta sala, que se pudiera en la Comisión de Política ayudar y colaborar para enriquecer más esta discusión. Creemos también, en apreciación de El Salvador, que sería importante poder incluir e invitar a otros actores que trabajan en este proceso, como la Junta Interamericana de Defensa. En ese sentido, creemos que si sería conveniente poder hacer esa invitación, y si la Junta Interamericana de Defensa pues lo tuviera a bien, incluir, ¿verdad?, sus aportes y sus esfuerzos. Eso sería, gracias, muy amable, presidente.
Next, we recognize the delegation from Panama.
Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente, señor secretario general adjunto, señora secretaria ejecutiva para el desarrollo integral, distinguidos delegados. En primera instancia, queremos agradecer al presidente del CIDI, el embajador Carlos Trujillo, el seguimiento al mandato emanado de la resolución ómnibus sobre desarrollo sostenible relativo a la consideración por parte de los Estados miembros de que consideremos esta propuesta que nos ha sido presentada en el día de hoy. Asimismo, agradecemos la información brindada por el distinguido embajador Néstor Méndez sobre los avances que se han venido dando en esta materia en la OEA. Coincidimos con él sobre la importancia de encontrar en forma conjunta el nicho específico que la OEA puede tener en estos esfuerzos escenario internacional de respuestas a los desastres. Igualmente, le damos las gracias a la Secretaria para el Desarrollo Integral, Kim Osborne, por su clara explicación de la propuesta de la CIDI. Igual que la delegación de Brasil, nos parece importante incluir en el documento las nuevas consideraciones de abordaje que ha traído en el día de la mañana de hoy la secretaria Osborne en cuanto a que este marco de respuesta está más referida a una etapa posterior en los sucesos de desastres y el rol de rehabilitación y recuperación que pudiese tener la participación de los mecanismos de la OEA. Es propicia la ocasión para reiterar la importancia que tiene para nuestro país la gestión integral de riesgos de desastres. Particularmente nos hemos avanzado durante el gobierno actual en trabajar en la reducción de riesgos, promoviendo en los últimos años un 80% de acciones en prevención y un 20% de acciones en el fortalecimiento de la respuesta a emergencias y desastres. En adición, reconocemos la importancia de realizar un trabajo coordinado y mancomunado en el hemisferio y en Centroamérica, la segunda región más vulnerable del mundo, de acuerdo con el índice de riesgo climático del 2017. Con respecto a lo antes planteado, cabe resaltar el trabajo que se ha llevado a cabo desde el Centro de Coordinación para la Prevención de los Desastres de América Central y República Dominicana, CEPREDENAC. Y mencionamos estos como unos elementos importantes en el análisis que nos correspondería hacer en cuanto a cuál sería el rol de la OEA frente a todos los esfuerzos que los Estados miembros desde el SICA están realizando en esta materia. Por ejemplo, han desarrollado una política centroamericana de gestión integral de riesgos de desastres. Actualmente se encuentran en una revisión del Plan Regional para la Reducción de Riesgos de Desastres de América Central para el 2019-2023 y se cuenta con un mecanismo regional de ayuda mutua ante los desastres y la implementación de proyectos que buscan la prevención y la mitigación de desastres. Entre ellos resalta el proyecto regional Construyendo Comunidades Resilientes en Centroamérica mediante la implementación de la Política Centroamericana de Gestión Integral de Riesgos de Desastres armonizada con el marco de CIDI para la reducción de riesgos de desastres. Este último proyecto es auspiciado por la Dirección General de Protección Civil y Operaciones de Ayuda Humanitaria Europeas. En este marco nacional que hemos desarrollado en nuestro país y este dinámico contexto regional, Panamá se ha sumado al trabajo de cooperación y colaboración para el resto de la región, poniendo a disposición de los países hermanos de América Latina y del Caribe su posición geoestratégica y desarrollo logístico. Y de esta forma se ha creado el Centro Logístico Regional de Asistencia Humanitaria, que facilitará la respuesta frente a las emergencias nacionales e internacionales. Este centro, conocido como el Hub Humanitario, se inauguró el pasado 19 de noviembre y está ubicado en Panamá Pacífico, y es el primero de su tipo en la región, sumándose a la red de hubs humanitarios globales que se encuentran operando en los Emiratos Árabes, España, Italia, Ghana y Malasia. En este sentido, reconocemos el valioso aporte realizado por la CIDI en la conceptualización de este marco de respuestas y nos interesa muchísimo, coincidiendo con la intervención del embajador Méndez, visualizar el rol práctico que la OEA puede aportar en facilitar una respuesta internacional a desastres en el actual escenario global. El documento que ha sido circulado ha sido enviado a las autoridades competentes para su revisión. No obstante, tenemos algunas consideraciones iniciales. Coincidimos con la delegación de Brasil, de Estados Unidos y de Salvador, en que nos parece que es una propuesta pertinente con el mandato que la Asamblea General emitió. Nos parece también importante debatir un poco más sobre la gobernabilidad y nos parece que es un buen punto de partida para iniciar un diálogo la propuesta que se realiza en el documento sobre el propósito, objetivos y funciones del mismo. Nos gustaría entender el valor agregado que a través de este marco de respuesta de la OEA se estaría aportando al escenario internacional y sugerimos que se incluya como parte del documento, aunque entendemos que en la metodología ya se realizó, un análisis con respecto a lo que actualmente ofrecen otras organizaciones internacionales y agencias especializadas, presentando los aportes que la OEA puede dar en cuanto a los vacíos que existen con referencia a las capacidades técnicas y financieras que existen en el escenario internacional. También estamos coincidiendo entonces y solicitamos muy respetuosamente que esta propuesta sea remitida a la consideración de la Comisión de Políticas de Cooperación Solidaria. Nos parece que es un espacio propicio para analizar con mayor profundidad y mayor detalle esta propuesta, un espacio propicio donde podemos acordar una hoja de ruta y efectivamente ampliar el diálogo y trabajar más cómodamente una negociación con miras a una decisión para la próxima Asamblea General. La Delegación de Panamá quiere reiterar el interés de nuestro país a poner el hub humanitario al servicio de los países hermanos de América Latina y del Caribe y transmitirle a la Sala y a la Presidencia del CIDI y a la Secretaría que cuenta con nosotros para los próximos trabajos que ameritará la consideración de esta propuesta. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. The delegation from Guatemala, you're recognized.
Gracias, señor presidente. Guatemala es un país altamente susceptible a los desastres naturales por sus características geográficas y geológicas. Debido a ello, es considerado un país con alto potencial de vulnerabilidad, por lo que un gran porcentaje de la población, infraestructura y servicios básicos están sujetos a diferentes riesgos. En ese sentido, agradecemos, señor presidente, la convocatoria de la presente sesión, así como la presentación por parte de la Secretaría Ejecutiva para el Desarrollo Integral del documento Propuesta para un marco de respuesta a desastres de la OEA, que coincidimos pueda ser evaluado en la Comisión de Políticas. La Delegación de Guatemala valora todos los esfuerzos que ayuden a fortalecer la coordinación y respuesta internacional en caso de desastres. Consideramos que el Sistema de Integración Centroamericana, SICA, cuenta con herramientas, mecanismos y procedimientos que pueden aportar en facilitar y armonizar este tipo de respuestas, pues nuestra subregión ha sabido coordinar su marco institucional y legal para favorecer el sistema. Coincidimos también en la necesidad de mejorar los procedimientos de coordinación del Comité Interamericano de Reducción de Desastres Naturales y de vincular el trabajo entre las Secretarías de Seguridad Multidimensional y el aporte importante de la Junta Interamericana de Defensa con la CIDI por su experiencia en estos temas. De igual forma, reitero el compromiso de nuestro país de continuar contribuyendo en esta temática, así como con todos aquellos esfuerzos que promuevan la generación de medidas para reducir el impacto de los desastres. Gracias, Presidencia.
Thank you. The ambassador from Trinidad and Tobago is recognized.
Thank you very much, Chair. Assistant Secretary General Ambassador Mendez, Excellencies, permanent representatives, alternate representatives, permanent observers. Good afternoon. First, I'd want to begin by just adding voice of this delegation to the call and the observance led by the Assistant Secretary General and extending condolences to the government and people of the United States and the passing of the 41st president. I'd also want to express to the Assistant Secretary General the support of this delegation in the manner in which he has sought to focus the attention of the organization in clarifying, and he refers to the niche for the OAS with respect to the whole area of disaster, management. Within the framework of the Committee on Hemispheric Security, which member states would be aware, this delegation does have keen interest. The concept of that niche being articulated as a capacity building facilitator has emerged. And perhaps we may want to continue to reflect on that as the specific niche for the OAS. With specific reference to the proposal, this delegation wishes to immediately at the outset thank the Executive Secretariat for Integral Development for undertaking this critical and timely initiative. As a small island developing state, Trinidad and Tobago has experienced some of the devastating effects of natural disasters which have increased in frequency and ferocity in the last 3 decades, particularly in the last decade. Notwithstanding our national efforts to mitigate against some of those effects and to build resilience, it is clear that international cooperation in the area of disaster management and resilience building are necessary. Therefore, Chair, distinguished colleagues, we note with keen interest just a few items that we want to share, even as we support the calls made in the contributions by other delegations, particularly the call for this proposal to be considered by the Committee on Policies for Cooperation of CIDI. We support that call. First, Chair, distinguished colleagues, we note that in the 3rd section of the proposal, which is headed Structure, Purpose, Functions of the OAS DRF, there is a concern with respect to whether the framework is being referred to and conceptualized at a level that ensures not just coordination and collaboration, but cooperation, which speaks to a requirement for this framework to be located at the policy level. And perhaps the very calls for the proposal to be considered by the Committee on Policies for Cooperation supports the concern expressed by this delegation. And therefore, we see that this framework must first be a policy framework. And that in that policy framework, even more importantly, is the requirement to ensure that we embrace and include the proactive, preventive, and mitigative dimension of the framework. By referring to the framework just as a disaster response framework, we don't immediately give visibility to the fact that we are committed to that preventive capacity building dimension of mitigation. The fact that we have sought to manage the operational component of the framework through the INDM suggests that we want to. And so the proposal would simply be perhaps that we refer to the framework possibly as the OAS disaster preparedness and response framework or something like that, that ensures that we are not restricting ourselves conceptually and operationally at the end of the day to just the response dimension of the area. Secondly, Chair, we note that, and this is the 6th bullet 6 of section 3, we welcome the revision of the INDM online database that includes a profile of data response capabilities of member states. But we'd suggest that perhaps in this bullet, there could be specific reference to including those provisions of the Inter-American Convention to facilitate disaster assistance. I should highlight now that within the context of the Committee on Hemispheric Security, based on a mandate assigned to the committee in paragraph 123 of AG Res 2925, which directs the General Secretariat through the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security to cooperate with CIDI to optimize inclusion of pertinent provisions of the Inter-American Convention to facilitate disaster assistance in the development of this proposal. We think that specific reference could and we would recommend that it should be made in that 6th bullet where we say including the provisions of the IAC FDA and this delegation would be prepared to collaborate and support seeing those provisions included. With respect to the governance framework on page 4, there is a need, Chair, we think, to clarify what is implied when we refer to the deployment of field missions. Perhaps there is some clarity that could be provided with respect to the resource implications. I know that we have been speaking to trying to avoid any increase in the resource requirements on the organization, and this delegation is, again, very supportive, but again, bearing in mind that we are proposing that capacity building facilitation is the niche, we just want to be clear on how this concept is meant to be implemented. Finally, Chair, we do agree with the calls made by at least one other delegation for greater visibility to be given to the role of our regional disaster management agencies. We welcome and note the intent to collaborate and coordinate efforts with the UN disaster agencies, but we think that there is already significant work being done at the regional level, certainly in CIDEMA, in our region, and we know in Sepredenak, and so we would welcome perhaps greater visibility, even while we note that there is an intent to revise the statutes of the IACNDR, including a revision of its membership that supports the framework. So we understand that there is reflection on it, but we think that greater visibility could be given to our role for those regional organizations. On the 13th of November, 2018, the CHS held an informal working group to look specifically at those provisions of the IACFDA that may be useful in ensuring, again, going back to the mandate, that we include the pertinent provisions of that convention into the development of this proposal, and we look forward as a delegation to seeing the collaboration that will occur between CIDI and the Secretariat for Multidimensional Security to ensure that we optimize the inclusion of those pertinent provisions. Once again, Chair, the Permanent Mission of Trinidad and Tobago commends CIDI for its work in creating an integrated and comprehensive approach to the disaster response and management efforts of the OAS, and reiterates the commitment of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago to working with our fellow member states to ensure that the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals is not significantly impacted by these increasingly ferocious, disastrous acts of nature. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Delegation of Mexico, you're recognized.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Primero que nada, quisiéramos agradecerle por la convocatoria y también agradecer al secretariado del CIDI por la presentación de este importante documento. La Delegación de México quiere subrayar la relevancia que nuestro país le otorga al tema de desastres y la preparación ante los desastres, así como la pertinencia de fortalecer los diálogos entre los estados alrededor del mismo. En este contexto, para México resulta muy relevante no duplicar esfuerzos, sino por el contrario fortalecer los foros y mecanismos en los que ya se aborda la temática dentro de este organismo y establecer sinergias entre ellos. Esta coordinación resulta particularmente relevante en el marco de los cuerpos políticos de la OEA. También quisiéramos reiterar que tanto la OEA como el CIDI siempre podrán contar con México para continuar trabajando en un tema tan importante para nuestro hemisferio. Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you. The delegation of Uruguay, you're recognized.
Gracias, señor presidente. De más está decir que para nuestra delegación el tema es de particular importancia y por ello queremos agradecer a usted como presidente, al secretario general adjunto y a la señora secretaria ejecutiva de CIDI por las presentaciones que realizaron. Pero también debo ser sincero y decirles que me causó como primera reflexión una cierta sorpresa de que este tema viniera directamente del CIDI al CIDI, mientras que tenemos una comisión de políticas dentro del ámbito del CIDI que podría haber allanado en discusiones, es decir, más no tan formales algunos de los puntos que se manejaron, pero aparentemente, de acuerdo a la propuesta de Estados Unidos, que ha sido secundada, es decir, por otros países, parecería que el camino induce a que va a llegar al CIDI, a la Comisión de Políticas. La preocupación de mi delegación, en definitiva, algunos países también la han manejado, y es la superposición de funciones, es decir, con otros organismos que han venido trabajando en el tema desde hace muchos años, es decir, que disponen de recursos humanos y materiales es decir, para poder actuar. Mientras que, es decir, todos tenemos claro que las capacidades y los recursos, que dispone la OEA, lamentablemente no son los que nosotros desearíamos. Y por lo tanto, temo que, es decir, una visión demasiado ambiciosa, es decir, de lo que pretendamos hacer, independientemente de que tengamos todos los mandatos necesarios, en la práctica, es decir, no se puede llegar a cumplir. Es decir, más aún cuando, lo que decíamos, hay organismos que están disponiendo de millones de dólares y de mucha gente trabajando en eso. De ahí, es decir, que me parece particularmente oportuna, es decir, lo mencionado por el embajador de Brasil y, es decir, recientemente, es decir, por el embajador de Trinidad y Tobago, en cuanto a que creo que una de las mejores tareas que podríamos lograr en la Comisión de Políticas es justamente el encontrar en qué nicho, es decir, es que la OEA, es decir, puede participar. De repente no es un objetivo tan amplio como el que quisiéramos, pero seguramente va a ser el más acorde a nuestras posibilidades. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Delegation from Colombia.
Gracias, señor presidente. Esta delegación también quiere agradecer a la Secretaría y a su presidencia por convocar esta sesión. Para Colombia, este tema pues, es de la mayor importancia. Creemos, sin embargo, que la asistencia en caso de desastres no se debe abordar como un compromiso aparte de la reducción del riesgo de desastres. Por tanto, consideramos que la respuesta a los desastres y el fortalecimiento de la prestación de la asistencia por parte de los miembros de la OEA debe ser integral y debe enfocarse también en la prevención y construcción de resiliencia en el hemisferio. Por otro lado, creemos que es importante también considerar evidentemente a los organismos de Naciones Unidas, como lo mencionaron ya otras delegaciones, pero también quisiéramos que tuvieran en cuenta los mecanismos regionales de integración y concertación que ya existen y que están trabajando en este tema, para no desconocer los trabajos que vienen adelantando, quizás en atención de desastres, que ya tienen conocimiento en estos temas y así podemos también evitar la duplicidad en estos asuntos. Quisiéramos también que estos temas se abordaran más en la Comisión de Políticas, que evidentemente tratemos de identificar el nicho de la organización. Ya el embajador Trinidad y Tobago, a quien agradezco mucho su presentación, Hizo algunas referencias a los trabajos que se vienen adelantando en la Comisión de Seguridad Hemisférica, donde ya se ha tratado de aterrizar un poco el tema, de identificar a la OEA más como un organismo facilitador y quizás de construcción de capacidades, evitando precisamente que con los pocos recursos que tengamos tratemos de hacer cosas que no vamos a poder hacer. Y finalmente, señor presidente, quisiera decirle que mi delegación estará lista para colaborar y seguir trabajando en el proceso que se venga adelantando para la definición de este marco. Gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you. Colleagues, your interventions have been noted. I now invite the Secretariat for Integral Development to provide a response to your statements and to provide the clarifications sought. Secretary Osborne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. And Chair, to respond to member states very briefly, I will hand over to Director Springer and the Senior Specialist in the Department of Sustainable Development, Pablo Gonzalez. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Secretary Osborne, and good morning, good afternoon, everybody. Just a quick response on the clarification sought by the Ambassador of Trinidad and Tobago. First of all, let me thank you all for your very encouraging comments. The Ambassador wanted some precise example in regard of the term deployment of a field mission. And the best example I can give for that would be the field mission that was deployed to Dominica after the passage of Hurricane Maria there. That field mission was very much, it had very much a resilience objective to it, in the sense that when it went into the field to look at the state of the water supply systems and distribution systems in Dominica, the mission was able to identify futuristic actions that the government of Dominica may consider when attempting to build the resilience of that water supply system. And the recommendations were incorporated in the government's proposals to a funding agency that had committed to give significant sums of money to the government to help to rebuild its water supply system. So that, I think, is a concrete example of not just what the deployment of a field mission means, it also concretizes a role that the OAS can play in response to requests from a member state. We did not initiate the request. The request was made by the government, and in exploring our options, we found that the White Helmets was in a position to assist, and a joint mission was deployed to Dominica to assist in that respect. So we were able to deal through response to rehabilitation and recovery and resilience building in the long term. Otherwise, I think the other comments made may be taken up in the Committee of Policies. I should point out, too, that we did have an initial discussion on this proposal. The proposal was not defined at the time as concretely as it is now, but the intention was not, obviously, to bypass the committee, and we appreciate the recommendation that was made in that regard. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Voy a tratar rápidamente de agrupar un poco los comentarios y atender algunos de ellos y complementar lo que la secretaria Osborne y el director Springer ya mencionaron. Tal vez algo que es importante recalcar es que esta propuesta de ninguna manera propone duplicación de esfuerzos. Esta propuesta se construye a partir de los sistemas que existen hoy en Naciones Unidas y en OCHA, considera e integra los acuerdos y los mecanismos existentes en las subregiones. Tal vez es importante también resaltar que esta propuesta establece un marco, condiciones que permitan a los estados desplegar sus propias capacidades. Se habló mucho de nicho y se sigue hablando y seguimos hablando, y eso fue uno de los desafíos, buscar el nicho de la OEA. Y siempre volvimos a la Carta de la OEA y a los principios que guían y orientan a la organización, que son el de cooperación en solidaridad, la política de buen vecino del doctor Leo Rao, y esto es lo que busca esta propuesta, facilitar, establecer condiciones para que los estados puedan desplegar esas capacidades, no crear una fuerza de tarea, no crear un nuevo mecanismo y aún menos todavía duplicar los esfuerzos que existen. Otro tema que tal vez vale la pena también hacer una referencia rápida, creo que todos ustedes y todos coincidimos que debemos seguir construyendo resiliencia de los sistemas. Y cuando hablamos de los sistemas estoy hablando de nación, estados, provincias, departamentos, municipios, comunidades. Eso es lo que buscamos. Pero construir con resiliencia es un poco más complejo que prevenir, que construir sistemas de agua potable fuertes. El director Springer se refirió al caso de Dominica. En el set de recomendaciones que hicimos nosotros a Dominica, justamente muchos no tenían que ver con trabajar en una nueva estructura, sino que tenían que ver con cómo podemos restablecer el sistema de agua potable de manera que no afecte la salud y que no afecte el funcionamiento de la sociedad. Eso es resiliencia. Y para ello hay que trabajar en estructuras, hay que trabajar en organización y también hay que trabajar en respuesta. También hay que aumentar la capacidad de respuesta de las comunidades y de los estados. Y de eso se trata nuevamente esto. Entonces, el que trabajemos en respuesta no significa que no estamos buscando como un, y tengo que usar la palabra en inglés porque creo que la expresa mejor, un overarching goal, which is building resilience. Respecto a algo que también se comentó y que creo que, y le agradezco al embajador Phil Spencer, que siempre nos alimenta con su sabiduría en estos temas, él se refirió justamente a utilizar este marco como un marco de políticas y enfocado en la prevención y en el aumento de resiliencia y mitigación. Esto también vale la pena reafirmar que hay marcos de políticas en esta organización. El Plan Interamericano 2003 nos da un marco muy claro sobre prevención y mitigación y sobre aumento de resiliencia. El 2012 lo mismo, el Plan Interamericano. Este marco busca enfocarse un poco más, de nuevo, en la respuesta y en la facilitación de la respuesta internacional que permita bajar la carga al Estado afectado y que la Secretaría General pueda apoyar fundamentalmente al Estado afectado en entender qué necesita y cómo manejarlo. Respecto a recursos, muchos de ustedes hablaron que no creen que la propuesta tenga los recursos o que debemos ser cuidadosos en las expectativas. Estamos totalmente de acuerdo. La propuesta, por eso es una propuesta de marco que establece condiciones y no necesariamente procedimientos específicos. Lo que buscamos es poner sobre la mesa una propuesta que después, una vez adoptado ese marco, podamos trabajar en herramientas. Una de ellas es la reestructuración del FONDEM. El FONDEM, tal como nosotros estamos proponiendo reestructurarlo, permitiría hacer llamamientos, appeals de emergencia y llamamientos o appeals predictivos, que permitirían apoyar de nuevo el despliegue de capacidades existentes. Muchos de los estados alrededor de la mesa, y esto salió del informe del 2012, 2009-2012, el grupo de trabajo del cual se refería la secretaria Osborne, uno de los elementos centrales fue justamente que en las Américas había crecido la asistencia humanitaria o la respuesta internacional intrarregional. Y hoy tenemos 15, 20 estados, gracias a Dios, en nuestro hemisferio, que provee esa asistencia. Creemos que este marco puede facilitar a muchos de esos estados que tienen capacidades, pero, y perdonen lo vulgar si se quiere, le falta el centavo para el dólar o el centavo para el peso, que este FONDEM y que este mecanismo, este marco pueda facilitar que despleguemos esas capacidades. Consulta con las agencias es otro tema que se mencionó y hicimos un esfuerzo muy grande. Sepan que nosotros conversamos con las agencias prácticamente a diario y lo venimos haciendo ya desde el año 2012, después del Plan Interamericano. El último año en particular conversamos con todas las agencias del sistema interamericano y tenemos conversaciones directas con la Estrategia Internacional para la Reducción de Desastres, con OCHA, con la Federación Internacional y con otros. Yo me podría extender, pero no lo voy a hacer porque creo que tal vez podemos dejar muchas discusiones para el grupo que se forme, pero me gustaría compartir con ustedes una experiencia que acabo de vivir y que creo que de alguna manera ilustra lo que buscamos. La semana pasada yo tuve el honor, el orgullo, el privilegio de ser parte de una misión conjunta promovida en colaboración por FEMA de Estados Unidos, ONEMI de Chile y algunas universidades también de acá de Estados Unidos, con CENAPRED de México. Y a mí me invitaron como experto en la materia para ser uno de los instructores del curso de instructores y el curso de gerente de programa. Fue una experiencia, por donde la veamos, muy enriquecedora, pero fundamentalmente que ilustra el espíritu de este marco, que facilitar esa cooperación, esa respuesta, que esas capacidades que existen en los estados pueda desplegarse. Salimos con el liderazgo del instructor de ONEMI y con el apoyo de los instructores de CENAPRED y de FEMA, salimos con 65, 70 instructores en México ya preparados para desparramar este enfoque que estamos empujando para construir resiliencia en las comunidades. Ese es el espíritu de este marco y confío que tengamos en el marco que ustedes definan, en el espacio que ustedes definan, tengamos la oportunidad de trabajar con ustedes y apoyarlos en este esfuerzo. Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Muchas gracias a todos ustedes.
Thank you. We're just informed that we have interpreter services until 1:30, so if people could keep their comments to a minimal. Delegates, having received preliminary comments on the proposal of CIDI, DSD for an OAS disaster response, I propose that CIDI send this proposal to the CIDI Committee on Policies for their consideration. If there's no further comments, the proposal is approved. The next item on our agenda will be the presentation of details of Phase 4 of the Inter-American Teacher Education Network. We welcome Ms. Rebecca Vieira, Coordinator, Inter-American Teacher Educational Network. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much. I'd like to introduce myself as the new coordinator of the Inter-American Teacher Education Network, which some of you may know as ITEN, or in Spanish as la Red Interamericana de Educación Docente, or la RIED, a project generously funded by the U.S. mission to the OAS. I'm very honored to be here before you to bring to your attention to the very important work of your ministries of education and the OAS to improving teacher education in the Caribbean and Latin America. Briefly, I'd like to say that before coming to the OAS, I served as a high school physics and engineering teacher in public schools. After a number of years, I was invited to Washington, D.C. to provide educational guidance at NASA headquarters, and most recently, to lead national efforts in STEM education through a professional society of teachers. In short, I can attest to the importance of good, systemic, national education plans and the real impact they can have on teachers and their students. As was mentioned, I'm here to provide you a very brief overview of Phase 4 of ITEN and to invite you to be involved in our network over the next 3 years to recruit, prepare, retain, and uplift the teaching profession. Many of you know that ITEN operates in response to Line of Action 2 of the Inter-American Education Agenda, strengthening the teaching profession. ITEN provides technical assistance, capacity building, and knowledge exchange to teachers and policymakers to improve teacher education in the region. In the previous 3 phases of ITEN's work over the past 12 years, ITEN has provided online resources for teachers, seminars for policymakers, and supported cooperation exchanges to help ministries of education learn about successful policies and practices in teacher education. During 2018 alone, I-10 saw the involvement of 26 member states in the seminar in Panama in April, including 10 who served as major partners for cooperation exchanges. Many I-10 participants requested more, deeper opportunities for cooperation and a strengthened network for interaction. So I know a number of you are getting documents. We do have some additional information within those documents. But briefly, I do want to share that over the next 3 years, I-10 will be providing 3 coherent cycles of project teams. These teams, we hope, will be composed of ministries of education and teachers committed to solving shared practices and solutions to problems, to support the meaningful exchange of ideas, and to engage in collaborative work. We will be looking for leadership among ministries of education in OAS member states to explore critical issues in teacher education and to encourage the formation of thematic groups around those issues. Each year, we will help these teams to set goals, explore research, and test possible solutions. We will be providing funded opportunities for face-to-face meetings through an annual seminar, small group cooperation exchanges, and seed funds to test and implement those potential solutions. We will also invest our efforts in building a 2-year fellowship for practicing teachers to help them improve their teaching and leadership skills. We hope to uplift the voices of teachers to take part in conversations about policy and to build leadership for instructional quality at the ground level in collaboration with your ministries. To streamline this work, we will be focusing on STEM education, which many of you know is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, with a special emphasis on the physical sciences. Some of you might be familiar with PISA, an international exam that's given to students worldwide. Results in the past 15 years suggest that about half the countries in the region have seen improvements in math performance, and nearly all have seen significant improvement in reading. But science achievement has remained relatively flat. And additionally, girls, women, and many other underrepresented groups in STEM experience obstacles to receiving high-quality experiences in science, but most especially in the physical sciences. Teachers are our best hope, and I believe our allies to achieve the educational quality and equality that we strive for in the region and in the world. If you've ever been involved in supporting I-10 in any way, past or present, I would like to thank you and encourage you to continue your involvement. I would also like to take this opportunity to extend an invitation to the missions to the OAS to meet with I-10 staff one-on-one to discuss the needs of your ministries of education and your teachers, to look for opportunities for collaboration through I-10. Within the next months, we anticipate sending out a verbal note that will provide more information about what actions you can take to become involved in I-10. In the meantime, I would like to encourage you to review the brochure you've just received, as well as the handouts that describe our anticipated activities in a lot more detail. I welcome your reflections on the work of I-10 and will be available following the closure of this meeting. Thank you for your time and attention and for your support of this important work.
Thank you. I propose that this council take note of this report. CIDI commends the execution of the program to date and welcomes the launch of Phase 4 of this important initiative aimed at improving the quality of education in our region. We will now move on to the item 4 on the agenda, the ministerial meeting within the framework of CIDI. Delegates, the Council will recall that the 11th regular meeting of Inter-American Committee on Ports, hosted by the Government of Mexico, was held on August 1st through the 3rd, 2018 in Mexico City, Mexico. I am now pleased to offer the floor to the Delegation of Mexico for presentation of its final report of the meeting. Mexico, you have the floor. Please take into consideration our time constraints. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Primero que nada, México quisiera agradecer la colaboración de todos los estados durante su presidencia y también el apoyo tanto de la OEA como de la Secretaría. Nuestra delegación quisiera presentar ahora un pequeño video que resume los trabajos realizados durante los últimos 2 años, por favor.
Los países actúan cada vez más interconectados, donde los eventos y noticias se conocen en tiempo real. El comercio mundial es un instrumento de unión y de cultura empresarial y económica. El comercio marítimo es fundamental para las relaciones entre regiones al transportar 90% de las mercancías en el mundo y es la mejor manera para las Américas de competir eficientemente. Los puertos son el eslabón más fuerte de las cadenas de suministro y los barcos, cada día más grandes, demandan mejores instalaciones y de última generación. Los deberes de los puertos modernos son logística, innovación e interconectividad, gestión portuaria sostenible, protección ambiental y relación puerto-ciudad, salvaguarda y seguridad, regulación y políticas públicas a buques comerciales y turísticos, responsabilidad social corporativa, análisis e intercambio de información. Los 35 países de las Américas nos unimos en estos compromisos. Entendemos que la mejor manera de competir con el resto del mundo es sumando esfuerzos y conocimiento a favor de la integración regional. Construir puentes, no bardas. Incluir, no rechazar. Así lo expresa la política exterior del Estado mexicano, que ha suscrito 12 tratados de libre comercio con 46 países.
Hoy ratifico el compromiso de mi país con la integración y el desarrollo sostenible de nuestra región para hacer del continente americano un hemisferio de inclusión y prosperidad.
En México hemos puesto en marcha 13 reformas constitucionales para lograr mejores ventajas competitivas. En el área portuaria trabajamos para duplicar la capacidad instalada que teníamos en 2012 y alcanzar más de 500 millones de toneladas en 2018. Con 2 sistemas portuarios complementarios, 5 nuevos puertos en el Golfo de México, en sus 3 corredores económicos interoceánicos. 2 ejemplos de esta visión de Estado que repercuten en nuestros puertos son la reforma energética, que permitirá producir 3.5 millones de barriles diarios para el 2025. Somos el 4º país exportador mundial de vehículos ligeros. Para el 2020 seremos el 2º. En 2018, nuestros puertos tendrán una capacidad instalada para mover 3 millones de automóviles. En esta visión de responsabilidad, el desarrollo implica sustentabilidad. México suma al esfuerzo global para mitigar el cambio climático COP21, con el compromiso de generar 35% de la electricidad con energías limpias para 2024 y de reducir 22% su emisión de gases de efecto invernadero y contaminantes climáticos para 2030. Hoy logramos la certificación de Ensenada y Lázaro Cárdenas como Puerto Verde por parte de EcoPorts. Manzanillo ha sido certificado como Puerto Limpio y los 15 puertos federales restantes tienen el certificado de Industria Limpia a nivel 1. Comprometámonos con responsabilidad global como protagonistas de la cooperación hemisférica. Luchemos por nuestra integración. La Comisión Interamericana de Puertos es un factor de desarrollo y un gran instrumento de intercambio de información y conocimiento. Refrendemos nuestra convicción de impulsar una visión global de crecimiento con respeto al medio ambiente. Juntos avanzamos mejor y más rápido. Trabajemos localmente con pensamiento global.
Muchas gracias. Esta era la visión de México durante su presidencia hasta el 2018. Quisiera rápidamente resaltar también que durante nuestra presidencia se llevó a cabo en agosto la 11ª reunión ordinaria de la Comisión Interamericana de Puertos en México y se aprobaron ahí la resolución y el plan de acción de la Ciudad de México, que serán la línea de partida para el periodo 2018-2020. También se aprobó el presupuesto operativo y se eligieron a las nuevas autoridades, y quisiera aprovechar para felicitar a la delegación de Argentina por su elección y también nuevamente reiterar el trabajo realizado por la CIP para fortalecer la capacidad institucional de las autoridades portuarias y el ofrecimiento de becas con un valor de $964,400 a funcionarios de 29 países miembros de la CIP-OEA. Muchísimas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you. Since there are no additional comments, I propose that this council take note of this report. Delegation from Argentina.
Gracias, señor presidente. Buenos días a todos. Muy brevemente quiero agradecer el comentario de la Delegación de México y en general a todas las delegaciones que apoyaron la presidencia de la Argentina. Para nosotros es muy importante, es sustantivo el desarrollo de los puertos porque permite desarrollar nuestras economías, la integración y apuntar al desarrollo sustentable de nuestras naciones. Quería compartir con ustedes un mensaje que ha enviado a través de un video nuestro interventor de puertos, quien ha asumido la presidencia de la CIP. Así que le pediría, señor presidente, si fuera posible. Muchas gracias.
If you don't mind sending the video, because we're down to 19 minutes before we run out of translation, and we still have multiple agenda items. Is that possible? Thank you.
Gracias.
I now offer the floor to the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda in their capacity as president of the Inter-American Committee on Education for the presentation of the draft resolution CIDI Doc 267/18 for the convocation of the 10th Inter-American Committee meeting on Ministers of Education within the framework of CIDI. Antigua and Barbuda, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, in the interest of time, just to be very briefly, following the offer made by the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda at the last CD meeting, which was on the 5th of November, to host the 10th Inter-American Meeting of Ministers of Education, the delegation of Antigua and Barbuda now wishes to present this draft resolution to convene the said meeting, which would include the preparatory meeting, which is from the 7th and the 8th of March here in Washington, D.C., and the ministerial meeting, which will be held 10th to 11th July in Antigua. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Since there are no additional comments, I propose that this council approve the draft resolution CD Doc 267/18 to convene the 10th Inter-American Committee meeting of Ministers on Education within the framework of CIDI on July 10th and the 11th, 2019 in Antigua. So approved. Delegates, this council will now recall that the 84th meeting of CIDI held on November 5th, 2018 received a note from the delegation of Guatemala requesting the reprogramming of the 4th meeting of ministers and high-level authorities of social development for the first quarter of 2019. The delegation of Guatemala now submits for the consideration of this council draft resolution CD Doc 265/18, proposing the dates of March 28th and 29th, 2019. Guatemala, you have the floor.
Gracias, señor presidente. Durante la sesión ordinaria del CIDI del pasado 5 de noviembre, la delegación de Guatemala reiteró el compromiso de nuestro país de acoger la cuarta reunión de ministros y altas autoridades de desarrollo social que había sido programada para el 29 y 30 de noviembre pasado. A este respecto, nos permitimos informar que se ha previsto realizar la citada reunión los días 28 y 29 de marzo de 2019 en la ciudad de Guatemala. Esta información fue distribuida oficialmente a los Estados miembros a través de la Secretaría Ejecutiva del CIDI el pasado 29 de noviembre en el documento clasificación CIDI/INF 298/18. Para cumplir con las formalidades de mérito, me permito someter a consideración del Pleno para su aprobación el proyecto de resolución titulado Cambio fecha de la cuarta reunión de ministros y altas autoridades de desarrollo social en el ámbito del CIDI, el cual fue distribuido por la CIDI como documento clasificación CIDI/DOC 265/18. En ese sentido, el Gobierno de Guatemala agradece la comprensión y apoyo a los Estados miembros en relación al cambio de fechas, así como el interés manifestado por las delegaciones respecto a la realización de la reunión ministerial. Gracias.
Thank you. I propose this council approves the draft resolution CD Doc 265/18 for the 4th meeting of ministers and high-level authorities of social development to be held on March 28th and 29th, 2018 in Guatemala City, Guatemala. Without objection, it is approved. Before proceeding to the final agenda item, I would like to offer the floor to Secretary Osborne for some closing remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, distinguished delegates, we've come to the end of another year and to the end of another CD term. This time of year is also a time for reflection and for looking forward to what lies ahead. We have witnessed tremendous change in our region, marked by the emergence of various political ideologies to the status quo. We've also seen in many of our member states a decline in the socioeconomic gains of the last decade from a combination of economic crises, disasters, and other external shocks. These realities call for us to refine our approaches to development to better ensure that we are delivering on the promise of Article 32 of the OAS Charter. The lessons from 2018 are many and varied, and are particularly instructive when placed in the context of the 2030 Agenda for Development to which all member states have committed. In my view, several factors need to be considered as we redefine and refine the role of CIDI in delivering development assistance and technical cooperation to all member states. First, advancing the OAS mandate for democracy and human rights is inextricably linked to quality of life improvements in member states that development assistance and technical cooperation can help secure. Second, while development banks provide significant development project financing in the Americas, most, if not all of it, is made in the form of loans to recipient countries. Third, there is a major trend in the development assistance community towards partnerships, alliances, and networks to leverage development assistance budgets and enhance effectiveness and sustainability by engaging developing countries with NGOs and the private sector. CIDI, with its connections to member states, is well positioned to foster and facilitate such engagement. The projects financed by major development banks, and aid agencies reflect their internal needs as well as their own country priorities. In the case of the OAS CIDI, member states have direct decision-making power over OAS priorities, and as such, the OAS is much closer to its client, quote-unquote, than other agencies. Moreover, while international financial institutions shift to other projects that boost their bottom line, the OAS remains engaged over the long haul, helping to build capacity in member states. Within the context of the OAS CIDI, member states have an important option for securing development assistance, technical cooperation that is more community-based, locally delivered, and responsive that cannot be typically had from the development banks and aid agencies. And finally, the OAS has a major comparative advantage in its political ecosystems, with its member states providing the environment to be more receptive to smaller development assistance and technical cooperation programs. Only last month, we had a major donor coming to seek the political endorsement of the OAS for a major fund that it's aiming to establish within a financial institution. Chair, this era of development is not just about money. It is about effective, targeted, and responsive collaboration and cooperation. I believe that the model of cooperación solidaria enshrined at the OAS for so many years is even more relevant today. We have witnessed that power extend beyond our region this year to as far as Israel and Germany, who hosted the first America's Competitiveness Exchange outside of the region, as they seek to build partnerships with our governments and our private sector. This reinforces the value that others see in our work and our reach. And so, as we close 2018 and look forward to 2019, I challenge all of us, both from the Secretariat and member states, to reflect on how we can best channel this comparative advantage that this organization possesses and determine how to strengthen our capacity for more robust and relevant policy dialogue, for the delivery of technical cooperation, and for building partnerships that improve the lives and livelihoods of the people of this region. Chair, I take this opportunity to express my sincerest thanks to you on behalf of the Secretariat. I've enjoyed working with you, and I look forward to our continued engagement. The U.S. remains the biggest partner in development in CIDI, and we are very grateful for this continued support. Thank you so much. To all our member states, thank you for your continued support. We are particularly grateful to those of you who have shared experiences and exchanged good practices with others this year. This is what makes development cooperation so powerful. I am so often amazed by what is being accomplished in both policy and practice in this hemisphere, and I am convinced that our continued sharing can only lead to good outcomes for our region. Happy holidays to all of you and to your families, and we'll see you in 2019. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We now proceed to the final item on our agenda. Ask if there's any other matters of attention before this council. Seeing none, we'll show the video from Argentina to close out the meeting, and we'll proceed to adjourn.
Buenas tardes a todos. Antes que nada, no quería dejar de saludarlos y no dejar de decirles que a la Argentina nos honra este ofrecimiento de presidir la Comisión Interamericana de Puertos de la OEA. Cuando tuvimos ese ofrecimiento, desde ya que no dudamos ni un segundo en aceptarlo, pero entendimos toda la responsabilidad, toda la vocación de servicio que conlleva tan significativo cargo. Es importante para nosotros que todos los Estados miembros, que todos los puertos trabajemos en equipo. El potencial que tienen los puertos de las Américas no tiene límites, y eso es algo que solo podemos desarrollar trabajando juntos, trabajando en equipo. Para esto es muy importante conocer las diversas realidades que tienen los distintos estados, que tienen las distintas actividades portuarias de cada uno de los organismos. Para esto es importante no solo la resiliencia, sino también hacerle frente y entender la diversidad. No tienen las mismas realidades los países del Caribe, con sus catástrofes naturales, que los países del sur o que los países del norte. Es muy importante para esto trabajar juntos. Es por eso que, honrando a la Organización de Estados Americanos y a este brazo tan poderoso que es la Comisión Interamericana de Puertos, invitamos a todos los Estados miembros a participar con esta enorme vocación de trabajar juntos. Si nos ponemos a pensar, absolutamente todo o casi todo lo que nos rodea pasó o va a pasar por un puerto. Contagiemos esta vocación portuaria. Contagiemos este gen de la cosa portuaria, porque la economía de nuestros países depende en gran parte de nuestros puertos. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. And with that, we close. Have a great afternoon.